Knuckleduster is undoubtedly one of the most interesting characters in the My Hero Academia universe, and today we're going to be examining his former quirk. Now, when we first encountered this character in chapter 1 of the Vigilante spin-off manga, he was presented as a reckless vigilante who would attempt to beat up literally anyone in his way, whether that be giant monsters or even pro heroes. But as the series progressed, we learned a lot more about his past and his motivations for what he does. So yeah, like I said, we're going to be explaining his former quirk and my solid theory on why he lost it, and there will be spoilers for Vigilantes, so do watch at your own risk. So Knuckleduster's former quirk is known as Overclock, and much like Captain Celebrity's quirk, it is way more complex than it first appears. So starting at a basic level, Overclock allows the user to move at super speed for a few seconds, and I'm talking like Quicksilver levels of speed here. During his early years as a pro hero, he would use this ability to hit people with what was described as 4 simultaneous punches, and in this panel we can actually see it in action when he activates his quirk to hit 2 villains with 4 punches each, all within a couple of seconds. Now in parts of Asia, this gained him the nickname of Hyper Quadfist. However, according to Duster himself, the quirk's true power is not simply super speed, but rather it is a brain stimulation quirk that allows the user to think, see, and hear at hyperspeed. So essentially, you can just do normal people things just at super speed. Now before we continue, I need to address one very important spoiler that will help me explain the benefits of this quirk in more detail. As we know, Knuckleduster no longer has this ability, but what I didn't mention is that it is currently possessed by a villain known as Number 6. Now I'm fairly certain why this happened, and I'll explain later in the video, but all you need to know for the moment is that he's shown us an even greater potential for Overclock. Just to give you guys context, Number 6 does have multiple quirks already, with one of them being a healing ability that allowed him to recover pretty quickly from a shotgun wound. We then see that he takes this healing ability to a greater level by combining Overclock to speed up his cell regeneration after his arm was blown off. And to help him do this, he also used these things called bomber cells, which you don't really need to know about for this video. The main point I'm getting at is that you can use Overclock to speed up your own biology in a certain way. And although Number 6 does have multiple quirks, I would assume that Knuckleduster would also have been able to apply it in a similar way. Maybe just to, I don't know, when he was a kid, he could go through puberty quicker or something. I don't know exactly. But I feel like because of the way we've seen Number 6 use it, it can be used to help your biology in some way. Now, on a different occasion, we see Number 6 captured by law enforcement, but once activating this quirk, he casually gets up whilst everyone else appears frozen, and he proceeds to steal their guns and shoot the cops whilst they're motionless, and then escape. Imagine being the cops in this situation. Like, one minute you think you got the guy, the next you've been literally shot with your own gun and just completely wrecked. Not a good situation. Number 6 has a super move called Instant 8, in which he delivers 8 simultaneous punches on one target, which is double Knuckleduster's old record. We see him use this not just on a punching bag, but also to effortlessly take down this villain who was annoying him. And this villain that he beat up is actually a really nice guy, but for those of you who have read Vigilantes, you'll know that when he was acting as a villain, he wasn't really in control. Anyway, the last thing to mention about this awesome quirk is that because it increases your perception of things, right? You can pick up on people's unconscious feelings just by the way they move and the way they talk. If you're using this quirk, you can see the non-verbal hints that they're giving you, and you can kind of use that to alter your response. By doing this, it allows people who use Overclock to be master manipulators, as they can tell people exactly what they want to hear and say whatever is necessary to get the desired outcome that they want. Despite all this, Overclock does have some drawbacks, so there's a limit on how long you can use it for, normally just a few seconds, and then once it's done, you have to wait a few more seconds until you can use it again. This is referred to as a cooldown period, and whilst like I said, it's normally just a few seconds, it's still a period of time in which the user of this quirk is on a level playing field, just like everyone else, so they can't speed up, and yeah, essentially they can get hit. Because Knuckleduster used this quirk for basically his entire hero career, he knows more about it than anyone else. So during his confrontation with Number 6, he explained that if a person using Overclock tries to think too fast or accelerate too fast, then it will deprive the brain of oxygen and cause the quirk to time out faster than usual. He refers to this quick timing out as brain drain, and he tried to use this weakness against Number 6 by playing an audio recording at 300 times normal speed whilst pointing a rifle at him. And the reason he was pointing a rifle was basically to get his brain moving faster and activate his flight or fight response. Also, another weakness, which, is to be expected, if a person using this quirk suffers a concussion, then that stops it from activating as well. But, with that explained, let's move on to everything we know about why it got stolen and how it got stolen, and my solid theory which fills in the gaps. So during Knuckles' long hero career, he was known as the high-speed hero, Overclock, and we know that at some point he was attacked and had his quirk stolen and his face split in half. This is why he has that scar on his face ever since we meet him in chapter 1. My theory on why this happened is pretty simple. To start with, Number 6 works for an organization known as the Villain Factory, and when we take into account everything we've read in Vigilantes, to me it's pretty clear that this organization is just a precursor to the League of Villains. At this stage in the manga, we still don't know who Number 6's mysterious boss is, but from everything we've seen, I'm fairly confident that it is Dr. Ujiko. So I'll lay out the 2 bits of evidence to support this idea, and then I'll explain why that led to Knuckleduster being singled out to lose his quirk. Firstly, the Villain Factory are responsible for manufacturing several next-level villains. This is a term for people who have been bioengineered into these creatures, which come in a variety of shapes and sizes. Now, for the purposes of this video, I want to turn your guys' attention to the next-level villain known as the Bombers. Much like the Nomu, these Bombers lacked any capacity for real independent thought, and when we take a look at the one here with 6 arms, it possessed a super regeneration quirk, which was demonstrated when it hit Captain Celebrity with an explosion and then regrew its hands. This is important because in the main series, it is specifically stated that the Black Nomus are equipped with hyper-regeneration quirks, and we've even seen this with both the USJ Nomu and recently with the high-end Nomu. When you consider the fact that super regeneration is classified as a rare quirk, the most likely scenario is that Dr. Ujiko is behind creating these bombers and distributing this rare super regeneration quirk, in much the same way that he did for the Black Nomus of the future. The second reason I'm sure that the Villain Factory are actually the League of Villains is because of Number 6 himself. Number 6's human alias is Rokuro Nomura. When we examine this name, the first 4 letters of his first name mean 6 in Japanese, which obviously correlates to his name, which is Number 6. And the first 4 letters of his last name spell out Nomu. So you guys know I love a conspiracy theory, alright? But this isn't even much of a conspiracy. I mean, it's staring us right in the face. This guy is obviously some kind of prototype Nomu. We know for a fact that Number 6 was created in a lab by the Villain Factory. And when he was first made, he looked like this, which sort of reminds me of those creatures made of fat from Doctor Who. Ever since he was made, he spent all his time watching anything and everything related to Overclock until he became obsessed with the hero. We see in this panel that he would watch the hero on TV while still in his fetus form, and even up till when he was fully grown and had the battle with Knuckleduster, he still had massive admiration for him, even complimenting them during their fight. He loved the guy so much that when Knuckleduster actually lost his quirk, Number 6 carved a scar on his face so that he could emulate his idol. This guy has like serious issues. My theory is that Number 6's obsession with Overclock was the intentional result of Dr. Ujiko's indoctrination. Remember that in the main series, All For One would identify good quirks that he wanted to take well in advance, and he would only steal them when the time was right. The clearest example of this was Ragdoll's quirk, which All For One said himself he had had his eye on for a while. So clearly, when it comes to stealing quirks, there is generally a bit of strategizing here. And my thinking is that they indoctrinated Number 6 with all this footage of Overclock with the specific purpose of him one day gaining this quirk. It only makes sense because it's not like this blob of flesh set up this HD TV by himself. Like, someone made sure that he was watching Knuckleduster for a specific reason. Because this creature is called Number 6, I think it's safe to assume that there were at least 5 other intelligent Nomus like this, assuming they weren't just failed experiments. What if Dr. Ujiko creates these things to lead their own operations, testing out the prototype Nomus in different parts of Japan and supplying the quirk-enhancing drug Trigger? And in order to make sure that they don't get captured, each blob has a quirk that they specialize in from a young age. They set things up so that Number 6 would be obsessed with this quirk in the first place, and so when he received it, he kind of already knew a lot of the techniques that Knuckleduster was using at the time. Like, to me, it just makes perfect sense that they would do this. It makes him super hard to defeat, and he's used it, like we've seen, he uses it in ways that even Knuckleduster himself has never seen. Now, as we all know, Knuckleduster had his quirk taken away before the Vigilante story began, as we found out that he stopped renewing his hero license a few years ago. After stealing the quirk, it's probable that All For One gave it to this little Nomu here, who already would have had a good understanding of how the quirk works based on all the footage that he was made to watch. Overall, yeah, it was a very successful plan by the League. Finally, an additional piece of evidence to back up everything I just said is that the Villain Factory's goal is to create a being that could rival All Might's level of power. This was stated after All Might basically destroyed a ton of these bombers, like thousands of them, with just one punch. The Villain Factory's goal of creating a being that could rival All Might's level of power was fulfilled 5 years later with the creation of the USJ Nomu. And when this Nomu was introduced, like, they literally spell it out for you. It is as powerful as All Might, so clearly the connection is just so obvious. Like, All For One and Ujiko are 100% behind the Villain Factory. But yeah, that's basically everything there was to say about his quirk and potentially why it was stolen. So I guess the last thing to discuss is Knuckleduster's life before he became Batman. Although we've covered most of what we know already, sometime after his quirk was stolen, his relationship with his daughter completely broke down, with this page of the manga showing us that they used to disagree quite often, especially regarding her fascination with pursuing music. This eventually caused her to run away from home, which then turns into a major storyline in the Vigilantes manga, and is kind of the reason why Duster became a vigilante in the first place. Following his daughter running away, his wife became seriously ill and was taken to the hospital, where she still is the first time we see her character. From this panel, it's clear that she's unable to talk properly, and she has a patch on her eye, which, in the context of Vigilantes, is something very, very suspicious. If anyone knows exactly what happened to his wife, then do let me know, because I don't actually remember them explaining that, but because of this eye patch thing, it has a lot of connotations. And yeah, that was Knuckleduster's former quirk explained, as well as why the league probably wanted it in the first place. Let me know your thoughts, as I'm pretty sure my theory could be added to, and if you haven't seen it already, then do be sure to check out my video explaining Captain Celebrity's quirk, and let me know if you want more Vigilantes content. Thanks for watching, and peace out.